Hello, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Having a little issues on my side with the audio and video today. So hopefully if people put in the chat, or do a thumbs up, can you hear me now? Thank you. So thanks for being here on a Friday. And our icebreaker is a little bit of a kickoff from the Bobcat picture from the backyard. And the question is, if you could be close to any creature at all, where you were safe and the creature was safe, is there a creature that you think would be pretty neat to be able to be a little closer to? And I actually saw a baby bobcat follow along with its mom right along that path. And I think it'd be pretty cool just to be able to sit on a rock and just kind of watch them engage in their den. I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want to disturb them and have them move from where they are now, but I think that would be pretty cool. Welcome, Sunny. How are you today? How's it going?
It's going well, and I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you the first time I was.
I think that was my side.
Oh, okay. Well, I got off and back on. So I am Sunny McFeetris, and I am the director of the Dartmouth College Childcare Center in Hanover. And was it a creature you would like to be closer to, or like to be able to be
where you were
closer
safe and it was safe and you could just kind of learn more about it?
Penguins.
Oh, neat.
Penguins. I want to be closer to penguins.
Now, are they going to be in Antarctica when you travel?
They are, and we should be able to be like 15 feet away from them. So,
oh, so cool.
So that'll be cool.
And thank you for introducing yourself. I should have done that as well. I'm Joanne Roberts, and I'm the lead consultant for the ECE initiative.
See, that's what I get for arriving late. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to.
No, you reminded me to do it. It's fantastic. Hi, Anna. How are you today?
Well, I'm very excited about the weather today. I think I would choose a polar bear, just because I'm pretty familiar with black bears around here, or maybe a grizzly bear or a polar bear. It'd be a close race. Yeah, they're just very cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the project manager of Vital Communities Early Childhood Education Initiative.
Hi, Julie. How are you today?
Hi, everybody. I am very well, thank you. Good to be here with you all. I am the new state manager for Save the Children Action Network. So Lindsay suggested I attend your meeting because it could be very valuable. A creature, an elephant. I would like to be up close and personal with an elephant, I guess.
That would be great. Welcome. We're so glad you're here, and congratulations in your new position. Have you worked with that organization in a different level prior to this new role?
No, I am new to Save the Children, but I have a long history working in social services and also advocacy. Of course, my last position was a housing advocate for a nonprofit in Nashua, and legislative advocacy was a small part of what we did. We more focused on providing assistance and case management to people in housing and financial crisis. So I'm very familiar with the issues that lack of childcare has on communities right now in New Hampshire. I know it's a huge issue. We had so many clients who just couldn't find childcare and therefore couldn't work and therefore couldn't pay their rent, etc., etc. And I know the staffing issues that all the leaders experience. So yeah, I have quite a wide background in legislation. I have passed one law in New Hampshire and have another piece of legislation that was retained in committee for this coming session to limit rental application fees in the state. So I'm familiar with the whole process and have kind of a lengthy history with advocacy in various capacities. So that's a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit about.
fantastic. Yeah, that's great. We often see the interconnections too between housing, business, and early childhood education. They're definitely all tied in together. So that's great. You have that background. What is is there a number attached to the legislation that's being reviewed right now, or what's the focus of that? Regard to the housing.
There is, let me grab that number. I am terrible at remembering numbers. So I do have it handy. The bill number is HB 283. And we would see a lot of clients come through who simply couldn't apply for apartments because there's an application fee associated with every single rental application. And people would have to apply for 20, 30 applications and with no chance of getting the apartment often. So I worked with a legislator to put forward a bill to limit those fees. And we were trying to sort of play it safe and placate the landlord associations. And we put in a nominal fee, but the committee in the State House actually wanted to make the bill stronger and consider no rental fees at all. So that was a nice surprise. And so, yeah, that should be coming back up this year. And I said, even though I left my prior organization, I said I would support them through that legislation because I sort of spearheaded it. So
that's amazing. Well, keep us up to date on that because we, through the ECE listserv, push out information that's not always specific ECE. But it all connects. So we recently sent out information in regard to supporting people after the storms that came through and things like that. And we're casting a wide net. So be very interested in hearing how that goes. And if we can support in any way, please just let us know. Be happy to help.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure it's an issue in the Upper Valley too with the housing shortages. So anything we can do to sort of alleviate that might help you or providers get staff who can find somewhere to live in the area. It's so hard to be focused on particular issues because everything's so interconnected. So I appreciate that, and I will keep you all posted as that bill moves forward. And obviously anything we can do from the Save the Children Action Network perspective, happy to step in. So
terrific. Great. Hi, Amy. How are you today? Can't hear you. Nope.
How's this?
There you go.
There's too many buttons. I'll try that again. Amy Brooks. I'm the executive director of the Early Care and Education Association. We're a network of licensed center-based providers in the greater Upper Valley region. We also are supporting the startup of a comprehensive family childcare network as well. And I honestly, you guys all thought are really great animals. So I don't know what's left that I would want. I mean, I have to tell you, the first thing that came to mind was Bigfoot, but I don't know if that counts.
Sure.
Can I use that one?
Yeah.
I really like to meet Bigfoot.
That's awesome.
Allow that.
That's great. For those, Mackenzie has her little smile crying. For those who might have come in just a little late, our icebreaker for today is if there was a creature, an animal, whatever it might be, that you could get up and close to, that you're not impacting it negatively, what would that be? We've had a whole bunch of different wonderful answers so far. And hello, Mackenzie. Glad you're here. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm sorry, my camera's off. I can turn it on for a second if you'd like to see my face, but I am just so sleepy today. Nancy and I were traveling around yesterday and Yeah, anyways, I'm excited for the weather too today, Anna, because seeing the sun is like such a blessing after so many days of rain. But I'm the director of Moms Rising here in New Hampshire. Julie, it's so nice to see you, and I'm so glad you're in your position. We've been waiting for so long for someone to fill your role. We're excited to have you. I am trying to think if I can go sort of take the lead from Amy on maybe an animal that's more mythical than anything. I would like to say dragon, because I think that would be really cool. And I know that, yeah, anyways, my kiddos are in that mythical reading phase right now where they're doing like the Harry Potter and all that good stuff. So my son is very into dragons right now. So I'm going to say dragon.
Very cool. There was a Harry Potter, like from the beginning to the very end, all the movies, and we happened to kick into a couple of them and brought back a lot of memories. My sons loved those, and it was pretty neat to rewatch them years later. Hi, Nancy, how are you?
I am good, thank you. Similarly to Mackenzie, I'm also pretty tired today after a fun day yesterday. I am the campaign director for Moms Rising in New Hampshire, and I would say, so I love pandas. They are my favorite animal by far. They are hilarious to watch, and they just like to eat all day, and that just seems like the best lifestyle anyone could ever have. So that's kind of where my direction would go, is to go definitely panda. I also want to say, Julie, welcome. We're so happy to have you. I know that this is a role that we're waiting to see who is going to fill, and I'm really glad that you're on our team. So thank you.
Terrific. Hey, Tammy, how are you today? Oh, great.
Hi, I'm actually outside and you guys are parked in a chair by the door so that the laptop is plugged in. So I hate using the phone, and so I got creative.
That's great.
My name is Tammy Hazlitt, and I'm a home provider out of Thetford, and I got involved with this group because I do a lot of advocacy work in the state of Vermont. And I felt that being able to be more target specific would be good. So that's why I'm here. As far as an animal, I would probably pick an elephant. I would love to be up close to one.
Sounds like you and Julie need to have a trip prepared that you can both go get up close with the elephants. That would be awesome.
Oh, I didn't hear she picked that. So yeah.
Yeah, nice.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go off camera so you're not distracted, but I'll be listening.
Great. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to extrapolate from what I'm hearing what the question actually is. So first, I'm Sarah Kobolinski with the Couch Family Foundation. And secondly, I think I would say orangutan, because I've always thought it was the best name ever.
Terrific. And you nailed it.
And they're funny. And they're funny.
And you nailed it, because it was, if you could get up close to any creature without disturbing it, what might it be? So great. Good job figuring out the icebreaker. So let's hop into our agenda for today. I've printed it out. It's a little easier for me to do that. And before we actually show the agenda, and it's fantastic, Nancy and Mackenzie, that you both are here. Thank you. Can you give us a little update on what you've been working on, and if there's any way that we can support those efforts?
Definitely. Thanks again for having us, and apologies for not being here 2 weeks ago. I meant to update you all on our Clarissa's Battle screenings a couple weeks ago, but many thanks to all of you who helped us pull those together last minute. We had that screening. It was very successful. We held it at Dartmouth in an auditorium. I think in the end, we had about 13 community members there. And I felt we did a series of 3 screenings, and I felt as though the conversation in the Upper Valley was actually the richest, and I really appreciated it. You know, we even had a dad there who runs a play group, which was really interesting. And so we're following up with some of those folks now, and really looking to continue these conversations around the state with parents about what they're experiencing in childcare, to make sure that it continues to inform the work that we do here. Right now, summer in between the two sessions is kind of our quote unquote slower period. So we're not necessarily spearheading anything right this moment, but I will say two things that we're working on are a proposed rule that was let out of the White House recently, which would change childcare federally. And so the proposed rule change basically states, and I'm happy to send along the information about the proposed rule to you all, but basically caps childcare costs for families at 7% and does lots of things for family affordability. Many of the things that they suggest are things that we accomplished this year in that large omnibus bill. And so it wouldn't really affect us that much, except to say that we may see, if we're successful, we may see some increased funding for the Child Care and Development Block Grant coming into our state. But right now, we would need to ensure that the funding that comes from the feds for these changes is sufficient, because right now, we, in a very simple breakdown of the funding that we typically get from the federal government for CCDBG, we can see how much we would get, and we know it's not enough to pay for the proposed rule change. So working with our federal delegation right now to ensure that any changes are fully funded, because we can't do those unfunded mandates here, especially in New Hampshire, where we don't have a state income to support large changes like that. So that's one thing that we're working on. And the other, I might defer to Nancy a little bit to tell you more about, but we are working to launch an Upper Valley Fellowship with parents and providers, a small fellowship program that will run between 8 and 10 months to help folks hone in their advocacy skills and take a deeper dive into the issues that are affecting families in the Upper Valley. And we hope to launch that soon. So those are kind of our two big projects right now, but I see that Julie has a question. So maybe Nance, before you jump in, I'll pivot to Julie.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick newbie question. Hopefully this doesn't take too much time for you to answer. I don't want to hijack things here. When you say capping childcare costs at 7%, is that, how would that take place, and what would the 7% cap be? Is there a really quick and easy answer? Probably not.
That's a great question. So capping costs at 7% of family income. So essentially looking at a total family income and making sure that that family is paying less than 7%. And frankly, I don't know how you do this in the private market. And this is where my knowledge gap is. And I actually might look to Amy at this to answer your question here, but through CCDBG, right? Families who access childcare scholarship, we know how much money they make because we have to know their income for scholarship. And so looking at those families and making sure. Now, I'll say, before I get convoluted, and I'll also admit that my caffeine hasn't quite kicked in yet today. In the childcare omnibus package that we passed this past year, the 7% was not a part of that legislation. What we did was adjust some of the steps to make it more affordable for families and to cap costs at 85% of state median income. And what ended up happening through this legislative process is that the department realized that it had the funding to actually make this 7% change on its own. So this was a rule that's now coming out of, and I can share more information with you when we get off the phone. But the department essentially, through our advocacy and policy efforts, said, let's take it a step farther. We're going to cap costs at 7% for all families. And so they made that change on their own before the White House came out with this proposed rule change. The proposed rule change, obviously that is a different beast of advocacy that has to go through a period of public comment. And frankly, after that, my memory gets a little fuzzy about what the procedures are for a proposed rule to take place like that. So it would be a very interesting way to go about a large infrastructure change for childcare. But Julie, I will definitely follow up with more information, because I'm not the federal work is like not my bread and butter, but it's a part of the work we do here.
No, that was a great summary, and yeah, that would be a huge help to people. But yeah, I can see the logistics of implementing that could be pretty complex. So be interested to see how that develops. And thank you, Mackenzie, for answering.
Hey, Ken's, Sarah put a question in the chat as well.
Oh, got it.
think
What about
that-
the New Hampshire tendency to not utilize or draw down all of our federal dollars and state internal work on that? Sarah, you mean like our ability to match like with TANF funding or CCDBG funding?
Well, in general, the state won't commit the state match dollars that it
Oh.
needs to bring to the table for almost any federal dollars, no matter what the topic is, whether it's, transportation infrastructure or children and families or healthcare, whatever it is, states have to approve the acceptance of federal dollars, and there's often some degree of match involved with them. And New Hampshire has the lowest drawdown rate of federal funds of any state in the nation, and has for decades. And so when we hear what could be available to New Hampshire, I always look at that and say, and what percentage of that will we actually see come in? And I'm wondering if there's just any recognition of that and consideration, and work with the people that would have to help to be sure that the federal money got here if it got approved.
Yeah, we definitely need to work with Senator Shaheen and Senator Hassan to make sure that that funding got here the way we expected it to. But I'll say that I'm typically a pessimist, but I'm optimistic that because like there is funding here already to bring those families down to 7%. I almost wonder if it is almost a non-issue for us, but again, I don't know, matches maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Amy, do you have any more to offer?
My concern is that the numbers they're using are based on
Right.
subsidizing low wages. So it's a scary path to start talking about 7% and what it's going to cost when it's not actually going to fix anything. It's going to perpetuate the issue with lawmakers not really understanding what it costs to stabilize the sector. So I know also that, and I'm not sure, Mackenzie, if all of those become mandatory with accepting the funds, or if they're come through as suggestions like they have in the past. Along with that is, this promise from DHHS to do a true cost of care, a little bit more than a survey in the spring. So we're already into 24 and we don't know what the costs are. We're having conversations around costs of numbers that aren't really the real numbers. So that's, I think, where my frustration is in it's 7% of what,
Sunny, did you want to add to that?
And it's also my understanding that the 7% of family income is for families that qualify for scholarship, which New Hampshire is doing well and increasing that to, I think 85% of the state median income. Families making 85% or less of that will qualify for scholarship if they apply. But that also puts a little more, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but more constraints to programs that don't serve as many people who are taking advantage of scholarships. So I don't know that I could lower my tuition to 7% because I don't have a lot of scholarship people. So that puts that impetus, I think, a little harder on families and programs.
Do we have a sense of what the upper range is? Is that $90,000 a year total house income, or is that 60? Like, are we looking, does anyone know?
I think for a family of 3, it's around 85,000 a year. And I think it goes up for, you know, if you have more family members.
Mhm.
Um,
And the application process, is that daunting? I saw some head nods about the application process, and I can only relate that to the K through 12 school system, where free and reduced meals are much likely to be taken for our elementary students. There's a stigma attached, and middle school and high school families, although they're eligible and they can get scholarships for lots of things that would help them, there's just that stigma, so they don't apply. And I wonder, is the barrier to the application process from your perspective? Do you know what that would be, Amy? Like,
I mean, they did change it from subsidy to scholarship a long time ago. So the language is, in Vermont, it's still subsidy. In New Hampshire, they changed it to the scholarship system, hoping that it would help. But the process goes through the same kind of subsidy, process. So people, I think one of the other things that I found just from my experience, because being in Coos County, like everybody was applied for scholarship, is that this is the same group, they have to produce pay stubs and other, rent receipts and things. And this is a group of people that they don't keep their pay stubs. They don't even, a lot of it's online now, like people that work in retail or, with the larger corporate groups that do it online, and it's sent to their email, or they have to log in and get their pay stubs. And then they would have to, like somebody working at Dunkin' Donuts, for example, would have to go through the corporate channels to get 3 of their pay stubs. So you're talking like it would take months and they're not going to pursue those things just because that's not where they are in their life right now. And so that alone is the barrier. So they may start the process. I asked a long time ago, it'd be interesting, Joanne, if we could actually get this, Julie, Mackenzie, Nancy, anyone, how many start the process in New Hampshire EZ for childcare and do not complete it, do not finish submitting everything they need? I would love to know, like abandoned applications, because I saw that a lot. People just gave up on the process because it required things they weren't really able to supply as proof of their expenses and income.
so is that overseen by, is New Hampshire EZ overseen by DHHS? Would that be the organization who owns that data, or who owns the data, to answer that question?
Yes, DHHS is sort of the person who, or the entity who runs those programs. I will say that, like, advocacy wise, Grasstops advocacy wise, we've talked about New Hampshire EZ for years, and we're long overdue for an overhaul of that system. And I know, I don't know if it's on anybody's plates for this year, but I do know that there are 2 legislators who are looking at policies for this upcoming year to look at automatic enrollment of the child care scholarship program through, I believe their method was through the free and reduced price lunch application at school, and getting families in the door that way. And there's another legislator who is looking at, oh my goodness, my brain is just not functioning today. What is it when you're automatically eligible because you are a provider? Why can't I think of the name of this?
Categorical.
Thank you. Yes, categorical eligibility for childcare workers, so that they would be automatically eligible for the subsidy as well. And yes, making New Hampshire EZ actually easy or accessible even would be fantastic.
So two threads I'm pulling is we are going to have an opportunity to meet virtually with Cindy Warmington on August 28th. And when I push out questions, I would love it if people would add on to it these larger questions to maybe she's not even aware of the issues that are out there. And how can we use this group to inform her of the barriers and maybe make some connections with that. And also makes me think about the conversations with the DOE or DHHS having a separate department to really support people and focus on ECE rather than kind of a blended model. And let's see, Julie, do you want to share what you added to the chat?
Yeah, so it's just a breakdown of annual area median incomes and the limits. It varies between each county. So, and this was sourced from NIFA, New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. They are federal numbers, so I imagine the income limits are the same across the board. They would be using the same limits. So they
That's
are.
cool. Yeah. Anna, I see you working away, so I'm guessing you're pulling that already. Thank you. I knew you were.
And Julie's information about that chart is, yes, that's the applicable kind of information, but we need that information then for Sullivan and Grafton County, and it would be interesting to see COAS too, how it compared, and then what is the proposal? 85% of the average median income. So anybody who made it any more than that wouldn't be eligible.
And Tammy added, because of the issues Amy outlined, there's a failure to complete the paperwork, and that leads to providers getting unpaid. So many Vermont providers don't like to ask for full tuition fees if the family is eligible for subsidy, because they're expecting payment from the state and they know the family can't afford to pay the fee while waiting for the subsidy to kick in. So
yeah, so that there's no grace period. So they don't retro until the day they turn in all of their paperwork. And if the parents are telling you, I've turned everything in, time is ticking, you're not hearing anything. 3 weeks later, they're saying, we're still waiting for a rent receipt. You have to eat for 3 weeks. There's nothing you can collect. You can't, there's nothing, they don't have it. And a lot of people will just leave and abandon, like Tammy said, and you're out that amount. So it's, people are getting shy of taking scholarship, children on scholarship or subsidy. I think, Sunny, I don't know, 20 years ago, they did this regionally in New Hampshire. They had regional intake people, and you could actually become your center. Like I did a training so that I could do intake. And you gather the information and you send it off, and you kind of hold their hand, and you can start them while the paperwork's processing, and you get paid for it. And then they regionalized it, like very much regionalized it. So they have to go, like in COAS, you have to go to Berlin to apply. And again, it doesn't start retroing until they get all their paperwork in. So if somebody gets a job, they can't start work for like 6 weeks.
So Amy, do you know where they have to go in Grafton County? I know, like for fuel assistance, they have to go to Ashland, and most people in the Lebanon and Enfield area, for example, don't even know where Ashland is. But do you know where they have to go from the childcare?
You can do it online if you have a phone that you can take pictures of things, and you can do a virtual or phone meeting. But that, again, that's another step. And these people need in-person, local,
right,
on-site support. The people that need it, but they don't have files of like all their their payroll receipts and everything.
Right.
And so I don't know about you, Sunny. I chase people. I literally chase them and be like, you need to get your rent receipt in. Like, you got to do that. I can't wait any longer. I mean, Sunny isn't, I don't know in the past if you had to deal with that. So but like I said, 20 is probably at least 15, 20 years ago, more than that. We could do it ourselves. We could start the process of supporting them as providers. You had to go do a training, and it was all, and the FRCs, I think, are supposed to be helping, but the system is really discombobulated and difficult. So, and if they don't have, they buy minutes. These are the people buy their phone by the minute. So they got to buy minutes to take a picture to send in their form to Easy.
And if their forms are online, having the technical skills to know how to get that form downloaded on their phone and then forwarded into an upload in the application, some people are going to be facile with, and others are just going to say that sequence of steps is too many steps. We know usually that people don't work with a website if they have to do more than 2 clicks to get to what they're looking for. And so if you're looking at all of those steps. So Joanne, maybe the thing with Cindy Warmington and others is this issue about, we can do a lot of work on creating opportunity, but it's in the administration of it that really the rubber meets the road, and it can still break down if the administration of the policies and the resources is not user friendly. And that's what we're talking about here, is that even if the scholarship dollars available would be better for the lowest income families, getting access to those dollars is so burdensome in the current configuration for both providers and families that they're underutilized.
Mhm.
And there was a system before that worked better. And what are the opportunities to perhaps go back to a system like Amy described, which used to work better?
And that's the regional system that you were talking about, correct? Amy writes it
Amy
costs
says that
more.
costs more, and why would it cost more, Amy?
It was more in-person local representation. So if I started the process, then they could go to someplace local to finish everything in person. They would have a caseworker right from the get-go, like helping them through the process. And now it's sort of done virtually. It's all done, unless you live in Berlin and you can go to the site, but they're not going to chase you like they used to. They used to sort of help you access, and things were easier then. Like, they did give you like pieces of paper and we didn't have all this virtual access stuff. So it's created like its own problem.
I know that DHHS is woefully understaffed. Everyone's incredibly overwhelmed. I actually applied for a job there and was told I would have a caseload of over 600 people. And so I think they're just trying to cut corners wherever they can. It's a huge systemic issue with low pay in that field, understaffed. I do think it's important to keep the online access for some people, obviously, but there are people who really need that hand-holding all the way through. We need to think about the executive functioning level of a lot of these people, and they're in fight or flight mode all the time, just constantly trying to survive day to day. Where's the next meal coming from? And planning this far ahead and following through. A lot of us think, why is it such a big deal? But it is a big deal when you're not sure when your next meal is coming from or where you're sleeping that night with your kids. So great points everyone's making here.
Sorry, I have my hand up. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First off, to talk about the application processes and things like that. I just also wanted to raise that just a couple of weeks ago, I had multiple moms, members of Moms Rising, that were reaching out to me because they were doing their eligibility paperwork, and they're doing their re-ups for the year, and they were getting denied. And these are families that have been receiving these services for years. Honestly, one of them was a family of 6 that has an income well below the poverty line, and it wasn't approved in time to where they were knocked off and ended up losing some of their benefits. And another single mom also had the same situation. And luckily, our moms are strong. They went in and they started to advocate, and they were calling every single morning and trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Because at that moment, they were no longer receiving their food assistance. They're no longer receiving their health care. They're in a tough spot. And they were told that, no, your applications were in time, which that was kind of the excuse that they originally gave them, was that their applications were not complete. But they were, but DHS was so far behind that it ended up actually affecting some people in New Hampshire over it. So I just wanted to raise that up too, is that, when we're thinking about the administrative side of things, yes, they have large caseloads. Yeah, we are aware of like all of the different pieces there. But when we're thinking about the process, we can't always just say, push it on DHHS and almost expect there to be a positive result, when right now they're not even functioning properly as they are now. So I just wanted to raise that up, and also being aware that some of the programs that used to run in our state that didn't actually go through that New Hampshire easy cycle, like didn't have to go through all of that, but instead were actually operated by separate project managers. The state has eliminated them and have actually pushed that onto DHHS as well, when they're already overloaded. So I just wanted to raise that piece up. And the other one that I wanted to say too is, when Mackenzie had brought up, what's going on nationally, on the federal level for childcare and the 7% and things like that. And the question on like, how is that going to affect New Hampshire? And that, I think another thing we need to do too is not necessarily look at it immediately as this isn't going to work. But I also know, like, by looking at some of these numbers that have been shared, and also being a mom that has had to utilize state assistance in the past personally, that this is actually going to help families a lot. There are quite a few families that will benefit from this. And so I think the problem sometimes that, I have in these groups is that, we immediately jump to everything that could be wrong here, and don't always think about all of the people that it could actually help before having all of the information about it beforehand. And I just wanted to just lift that up really quickly, because like we have a lot of unanswered questions here. Absolutely. However, I feel like there's a lot of times that when there's legislation or things that are coming through, we always want more, right? Of course we want more. But I think we also have to take a step back sometimes and take a look and see, okay, this is actually going to help. Even if it helps only a few families, it's still going to help families. And I just wanted to lift that up too, because I think it's too easy to go down the other hole.
Nancy, I think part of what we're trying to talk about is how to get it to actually help families and not have them have the experience that you started out your comments making about a couple of families who have been really, ground up in the system very recently with this. It's how do we prevent that and make this kind of benefit really, really get to people? And yeah, it's easy to hear it as negative. I think it's saying this is great, but let's make it work. And I guess that's where my head is when I hear us talking in this kind of way is what can we do to bridge from the resource to the people who need it.
Absolutely. And I feel like, I think talking like even solutions more centered towards that would also be helpful. I don't know, like another thing that I think about too is when we're talking about maybe having a person in the community to be able, like for providers to be able to send families to help with that process. I wonder, like, is this an area that maybe, family resource centers might be able to help with? I wonder about that. And like, and that's something that I would say, might take some of the pressure off of the backs of DHHS directly. But that's the thing is I feel like sometimes we immediately go in and we start talking about how it doesn't work, but then we spend a lot of our meeting doing that and not talking as much about solutions. Not this meeting especially, because I haven't been on this meeting very often, but I'm just saying in general, in the childcare community, oftentimes I feel like we get so stuck in, well, we're not even gonna, what if New Hampshire doesn't take these dollars? How are we going to make them do that? Why are we focusing our advocacies over here? Why is it more focused on here when we know that's a whole complex system? And I don't know, I feel like that's just, I felt like when the federal information was put out there that it was immediately just like, all right, like, is this even worth it kind of situation? And I feel like sometimes I wonder if we think more creatively, we might be able to find more solutions.
Fair enough.
And what I've been documenting are some of the barriers. I know the way that my mind works, and even when I did surveys of staff and parents, I would often say, please provide the X and the Y. The X is your concern and the Y is a potential solution from the district perspective so that we can understand maybe we haven't thought of something yet that is very, very clear to a staff member or very clear to a parent, but wasn't perhaps on the mindset of the administrative group. And that's what I would like to, and with a head nod to that, when I put out the information when we're preparing to meet, and I know Amy's connecting with Joe Kenny with a few dates as well. We're going to meet separately with both. The document I'd like to see would contain, we are aware of this positive movement forward, but we also know of some of the barriers or concerns. Here are some solutions. How might you, work to problem solve? And if they're not aware of the barriers or issues, then that's a gap in their knowledge too. So you can kind of connect the two. I think that what I've experienced is a bit of people not wanting to play together in the sandbox. I've used that example quite a few times, but I'm personally seeing from the committees that I've been fortunate enough to be part of a kind of a collective energy stemming out of the progress that's happened both in Vermont and New Hampshire. I tend to lean toward that kind of energy myself. And I think through the collective impact model that we're using in Vital Communities, we want to ensure that we are getting the stakeholders' involvement and engagement. And I'm wondering, Mackenzie and Nancy, if there's any way that when the time is right, that we can help support getting the word out about the fellowship that we talked about when I met with you in Warner that time. And I know that you were putting a lot of work together for that. So if we can assist with that, let us know. There was recently another connection with families of color that came out through our listserv about play groups and things like that. And I was going to have you reach out and ask if there's anyone from that group that might want to participate in any of the work that we're doing. I see that as a gap in our own stakeholder conversations. So I want to put that out there because if there are ways, if there are people that you might know that might be interested who would bring another additive experience, I would love to increase our group and our networking to be able to advocate together. When I first started, it seemed as though we were going to try to create our own grassroots efforts. But what I've learned is there's so many great pathways already happening that our best energy is put into the pathways that are going and supporting it and showing up. And one of the things we talked about that I'll remind this group is, please think about people who are willing to share their own experiences. That's what's coming across the most, with the most impact to legislators and other people. So if you can begin to create that list, I know Sean's still on vacation, but there's going to be some conversations where those straight, heartfelt, this was my experience, would be really helpful. And Anna and I have talked about, as Anna visits the different early child care programs, maybe asking for a video clip or for people to do a quick, here's what my experience has been, to put them together. And Nancy, do you want to talk about what you just added?
Yeah, so our fellowship program, we're looking to have it move. Right now, I have 3 moms with personal stories that are interested in being a part of the fellowship program. We're looking for roughly around 8 to 10 to apply at least, and most likely they would dwindle down because that's just naturally what happens in these programs. And the hopes would be we would have about 6 that would complete the entire fellowship program. And that's really the only thing that's holding us back right now, is that recruitment piece. I know that we had sent around back like a flyer that we had made that had a QR code and everything on there for folks to be able to share and like with their families, or even to send over a nomination for somebody. But we haven't gotten anything like that. So far, the moms that we have are ones I've had like direct interactions with thus far. So if you all have like any great parents, or even not only just providers, but even just childcare and childcare workers that are doing this work, family, friend, and neighbor care, anything like that that you might know, that's kind of where we're hoping to be able to pull from. I would like to have more of a variety of, folks, and have it not just be all moms, but I'm actually hoping to really reel in that dad, to be quite honest with you. But also to make sure that we have collective voices there. So if you all have anyone that you would recommend, please send it our way. And I know that we could definitely send around that flyer as well as that QR code to be able to go in and inquire about having interest in it. And just a reminder that, we are looking at roughly about a 10-month program with about an hour and a half or so is how long our sessions would be. They could be virtual or in person. We're also going to be offering a $500 stipend to all of the members that are involved in the fellowship program. So, we have lots of fun things, and a lot of community building is kind of one of the biggest pieces that we carry with it. So we'll definitely send around that flyer again for folks to be able to share.
Nancy, have you been connected with Lisa Bazogan at Waypoint in Lebanon?
I have not.
Okay, so she is trying to, her role is to build out the Waypoint small office there into a full FRC. And they've been running play groups and have some other kinds of connections. They've also been working on a kinship program. So she's energetic, bubbly, and has about as big a can-do attitude as anybody in our community. So I mean, you could just cold call her, or any one of us could make an introduction for you to her. What's your preference?
I could cold call her. I have no issues with that.
Okay, yeah, she would be. So Lisa Bazogan, Bozogan, at Waypoint in Lebanon.
And then
What was her
Mackenzie.
last name again? I'm sorry. Lisa B-O. You can put it in the chat.
B-O, yeah, I'll write it in the chat.
Thanks.
Oh, Anna has it right there. Thanks, Anna. Speedy. Fantastic. Something came to mind as well, as perhaps if if the providers, and I think that, I'm thinking that you were supportive of both Vermont and New Hampshire. We looked into that, and you are open to both Vermont and New Hampshire parents for that, or is it just New Hampshire?
We are open to Vermont and New Hampshire. It will be, like, to be very frank, it will be more heavily New Hampshire, but I would love to have, maybe 1 or 2 folks from Vermont as well, just so then we're really hitting across both sides.
Mhm. And Amy, is that something that you could, if I push it out to you, you could push it out to your network of providers? I see Sunny
We've
was
been
already
trying.
shaking her head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been trying, we tried in our newsletter, and I made a couple phone calls. Trying to think, Facebook. The only thing I can think of is like to think of a couple people and like target them and maybe set up a time to talk about it. I mean, it's easier if you hear about it, you know what I mean, in a conversation. If it's just like an ad or something, it's hard. It's
Right.
not as like, they're just trying to divide their time between 90 different things.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I'd be happy to chat, because honestly, even the moms that we have here, I think one of them had just seen the flyer and had reached out, and we started talking. And then it was ultimately the conversation that we had that got the commitment. So I feel like that's kind of where we're at. And honestly, I would prefer it that way anyway, just because then we know that the folks that are coming in are definitely people that are going to, fight this good fight with us.
Mhm. Makes perfect sense. Okay. I'm going to move us to the next part of the agenda. And do you want to talk a bit about the career cultivator and Jean Shaheen's visit and maybe some possible next steps post that visit, Amy?
Sure. Do you want me to do that now?
Oh, yes, please.
So Monday, was it this past Monday? I think it was it this Monday or last Monday? This past Monday. It happened very quickly. So in partnership with Dartmouth Health, we applied for a congressionally directed spending request to replicate the workforce hub down in Claremont. And I received a phone call from Senator Shaheen's office that they wanted to, Madison's been trying to get her to fit this in the schedule, that it was going to fit on Monday's date. He sent me a guest list. It was very much a press event, and I thought it went very well. There was nothing on that site, Sunny. There was nothing there on Monday before. And when we found this out, we had to really make a lot of arrangements to make sure that it was so that we could access it. Number one, I think it actually helped speed up the process of the occupancy. Making sure that the planters were there and everything. I thought it looked very nice. And we had 4 of our 5 current trainees there. We had a mentor there, and we had someone from the first cohort that had completed it. And the senator, after just walking through the building, was able to talk to them and ask them about their experiences and what brings them into the field. And I think that one of the common themes is that they didn't know what they wanted to do, and that this was a good way to not commit to like a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree or whatever. The stipend, of course, helped. One of the things we're changing is for the fall cohort, we're able to come to an agreement with Children's Center to provide childcare to the participants. And that was another barrier for people. That was actually why the 5th person wasn't there, because they were struggling with their own childcare. the Madison, one of someone that's on Shaheen's team, said that she thought it was a very, I think she says one of the most innovative workforce projects she's seen in a long time.
She said that to a number of us as she was exiting
Oh, really?
the modular. She said, this is the most innovative. And then I've heard from people who were at the housing meeting she went to afterward that she said she'd just come from this childcare experience that was the most innovative thing she's seen in childcare. So she said that to the housing people too, because I heard it back from them.
Awesome. And we were able to reach an agreement, an MOU with NHTI to offer the summer program for 6 credits, which really helps as well. And yeah, I mean, we're still working through the kinks of the subpool and some other things, but I think we're starting to understand more about what we need to, accomplish while they are there. And we're trying to get them into more centers to visit. We're going to be inviting directors to visit. It's very much how, if they feel comfortable in the building or with the director, or if they know someone, that they're more likely to work there. So I thought it went very well.
No, it took a lot of time to pull that together, and lots of different organizations supported it. So it is exciting to see that. That's fantastic. So your next spots that you're heading to is going to be Claremont and Henniker. Is that still on your vision and part of it?
So irregardless of the congressionally directed spending, which did make it through a major hurdle, for Claremont, I see us going to Claremont. We need to, we're not reaching all of the upper valley, so we need to go south of it. Henniker, we will be sharing our experiences with, and our knowledge and our resources that we have built, or the things that we understand and know about the program, to help them launch a site in Henniker. We won't be overseeing it or anything. But they're ready, willing, and able. So we'll start with a conversation about, first steps, and then just keep, communicating with them about recruiting and things like that, and then share any. We do sometimes get people that cross our regions, so that if somebody lives in between, maybe they could choose to come, somebody they recruited could come to us, and vice versa. So.
Great. Anna, can you pull up the list of organizations from the link? We're just going to go quickly through them. And if people put in the chat an organization that I may have missed, I've started with New Hampshire, but then we'll be heading over to Vermont. The reason that this came to be was the conversations that we've had with who's on first and who's doing what. And there are so many different organizations connected with ECE. I was trying to find one place where we could put information, put contact, and put their mission statement together. And I think I had a list of 13. So I kind of started with the New Hampshire Council for Thriving Children. And then underneath that, the second one is Moms Rising, then SCAN, then ECEA. Thanks, Anna. Then ELNH, and then the Charitable Foundation, and the Couch Family Foundation, Vital Communities, New Futures. I added the Civics Strategy Group and a bit of information about that, as well as the Maine and New Hampshire AUIC with Jackie Furman as the connector. The New Hampshire Childcare Advocacy Council. With that one, I'm going to stay for a second. I met with Marianne and Shannon. Another group of people that are so knowledgeable and professional, and I really appreciated their time explaining what their work is and is not, and invited them to a meeting to Vital Communities in September if they have time, so we can understand a bit more once again what their role is and what it's not. Right now, I believe Amy described that they're working on legislation changes to licensing, and they're working with regional ECE providers to get input, which is great. And Amy says Councillor Kenny's looking at a September 28th date. It popped out of my chat, but is that right, Amy? 28th?
Yeah, just before I forget, he had said, you had told me to give him 2 dates. I
Yeah,
think it was September 11th and the 25th, and he is looking at the 25th.
fantastic. Thank you. So hopefully we'll get an update from both of those folks, and we'll continue on to the next one. I added the Boys and Girls Club and Chris's information as the CEO. And so we can close out of that tab. And if there are other organizations that this group might think of to assist, sorry, lost my train of thought, that are supporting EC efforts, put them in the chat, and Anna will pick them up and put them in the minutes, and then I'll follow back. I'm not connected with Sarah Fox, New Hampshire Family Leadership Consortium. Okay.
Yeah, it was a group that was compiled actually a couple of years ago. We're meeting fairly regularly, and we're basically trying to figure out like what are all of the things that folks are working on, what kind of training programs might be available for families, kind of having a better understanding of who's doing what, because there's a lot of overlap in a lot of things that's going on here. And we don't necessarily have to keep reinventing the wheel. And if we are better aware of what everyone is up to, then we might be able to adjust and make sure that we're hitting all points. And that was kind of the whole reason why the group was brought together. I know that, PIC was involved in that. Moms Rising was involved with that. The Campaign for a Family-Friendly Economy was in there for a little while. New Futures also had a role in there, and some other players that are often at some of the larger coalition spaces on ECE were part of that too. So that wouldn't be a bad place to also look, because we were literally, that was like our main project, was trying to find out who should be on this list and trying to figure out what's being offered and where.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, and I appreciate that connection, because I'm seeing the same thing, being new to the field, just a year in. I'm just seeing so many different organizations, everyone working on the very similar points, but a bit in the silos still, and trying to get people together, so that I think our energy could be better used. Seems to be a bit of a barrier in of itself. But on another positive note, there was a conversation I was part of where there are people who are very much so getting together, putting together a vision and statements. Thanks for adding that, Nancy. And really targeting action steps in a very thoughtful way. At this point, they're at the beginning stages of that work, and asked, for time for them to really do their networking and make sure that they've considered everything that they, should consider before kind of announcing, or not announcing, but making everything more public. But it was great to hear a bit about the brainstorming that's happening, that's reflective of just everything that we've said today. And I think that's going to be a bright spot, and looking forward to perhaps in the fall or early, probably fall, early winter, them having an opportunity to pull everything together and putting forth some of their ideas about how we can have all of the different stakeholder voices be part of the conversation in a way that's very, I guess, systemic and systematic, rather than a little bit here and a little bit there. So I wanted to share that with this group because I think if that does move forward, it would help us to advocate more efficiently and effectively as a group. So I think that's pretty exciting to hear about as well. And I'm just going to keep in touch with those folks over the next couple months and just see, and perhaps at some point they can come and actually present the information that they're pulling together, which would be terrific. One of the things I am going to do is put together, I'm going to go back to when we met with Rebecca Holcomb and pull some of the conversation points from that meeting. Then I'm going to send it out to everybody on membership to ask if they have specific questions or comments for both Cindy and Joe Kenny. And I'll put those documents together because I don't want to do that in a vacuum. I really want to be able to have people's input as far as what they want to do. And my role will once again be just to facilitate those questions and the timing of the conversation, but need your assistance with what you might want to share with both of those folks. I believe we've hit all of our agenda items except what I started with is what actions can members complete over the next 2 weeks. So those are the things I'm going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. Are there action steps from people in this group that when we meet in 2 weeks, you'll be able to give us an update on? So maybe an update if we've gotten any more people interested in the fellowship program in a couple of weeks, that would be great. Julie, as you dive into your new role, and I'm so glad that you're here, being able to maybe make some connections between SCAN and the work that we're doing here to be able to support that work that's happening. I know, Sarah, there's a couple meetings that you're going to be heading to. You're always going to a whole bunch of meetings that can help connect the dots. And Anne and I have mentioned back and forth in emails and also a couple of things today that I know that she's going to follow up with. Any other things that came out of the meeting today that we want to focus on and then talk about in 2 weeks?
There's something coming down the line that this is not a focus, but something we need to keep tabs on is the RFPs that have been awarded will be utilizing, I'm not even sure, I wasn't even assuming, I was under the impression that they would be utilizing the regions for a lot of that work. And again, identifying what is happening in those regions and supporting those is my understanding. But then I got a call from Diane Chase asking me to collaborate on a North Country kind of strategy, and they split the region, Grafton and Sullivan in New Hampshire. So I'm trying that'll make it hard for us. I thought we were going by like the PDG region, so I gotta get that more clarification on that. I'm staying involved in it because I don't want to lose out on funds for Grafton County. But I should know more in a couple.
Mackenzie wondered if it's worth doing an RFP debrief. Would that be helpful for us to do?
I don't know. Do we have enough to debrief?
Great point. I was going to ask you the same thing, Amy. Maybe when we have a little more information, we could just do like a quick flow chart or describe or something to show where the money is coming, who the project managers are, and any ways that we could potentially not infiltrate, but integrate, I guess is a better word, with their work.
And my understanding is that they're supposed to be tapping the region. So I just want to make sure we don't, you snooze, you lose. So I want to make sure that we're connected to all of that.
I wanted to add 2 things. We didn't get to the 1-pager for New Hampshire. So it's part of this link. I'll go in and make everyone an editor, or Anna, if you could do that. because at the next meeting, I'd like to look at that, but between the 2 weeks, if people could hop on. The background of the one pager that's part of this link was based on the Week of the Young Child, where Sean, the city manager, signed off and, stated proclaimed, that's the word, that, Lebanon was supporting Week of Young Child. So I took it out the whereases and kind of cleaned it up a bit, because it's really important for us to have talking points. And a one pager of talking points, I think, would be very valuable. This one happens to be the New Hampshire side. I'm going to do the same for the Vermont side. So Mackenzie, thanks for taking a look at it. And yes, please, everyone, feel free to add comments, data points that you think would be important. I also am trying to time this, if I can, to share with the representatives before they come. I think that would be a nice way of saying, here are the key things that Vital Communities has come up with as key points to share with you. And then kind of ask them what their thoughts are about ECE in New Hampshire, talk about the progress that's been made, what do they see as areas that they want to continue to grow in, but also, hey, here are some barriers that we wanted to bring to your attention, as well as some solutions. I think if we could balance the conversation that way, it would be helpful. So the one pager, if you could look at it, would be great. Also, I think several of you are on one of them. I think there's 16 ELNH committees right now, or subcommittees. So if anyone is on those different subcommittees and we could make that part of our advocacy updates, it would be helpful, because I know that ELNH is doing a lot of focused work with these subcommittees, but there are so many of them. And there are a lot of meetings that I'm kind of attending, hit or miss myself based on my schedule. So I think it would be great if people attended any of those meetings in between our conversations, could give us an update, ways that we could support, and ways that also we just need to have knowledge of what's going on in the state. So that would be super helpful. Any other business for today? I know our meeting went pretty long, but I think the conversation was helpful. I know it was for me to be able to figure out my next action steps and connecting the dots. Okay, not hearing any other new business. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. I see Julie added her contact information. So if there's any way, if you're thinking, oh yeah, this would be great to have SCAN be part of, please let her know. And finishes off with the 7% for people. AMI under 85% is an enormous win. Appreciative of all the thoughtful discussion. Glad everyone was able to attend and that we had a good meeting. And we are glad that you're all here. So thank you so much. Enjoy the sunshine, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne. Bye, everyone.